Good morning. Glad to be here today. Happy to be standing with my colleagues, Councilmembers Ellen Cohen and Mayor Pro-Tem Ed Gonzalez, as well as community members, business leaders, and representatives of various City of Houston departments. Today's announcement allows the city to address two issues in a way that I believe is innovative and productive. Recognizing that Houston is a hub for human trafficking, the city has been focused on ways to reduce human trafficking and to help bring victims of human trafficking out of the trade. Today's announcement allows the city and 16 area topless clubs to enter a novel settlement agreement aimed at addressing this crime, but also ending litigation dating back to 1997, when City Council imposed new regulations on sexually oriented businesses. In the 16 years since City Council acted, no original clubs have closed, and new clubs choosing to ignore our regulations have grown in number. Establishing a working relationship with these 16 clubs will assist law enforcement in reducing criminal activity, help us combat human trafficking, and hopefully allow us to focus police resources on the rogue clubs that have opened up more recently. This settlement allows us to address the problems head-on in a meaningful way with funding and staff. Under the terms of the agreement, the 16 clubs will annually contribute more than $1 million to a Human Trafficking Abatement Fund. The funds will be used to create and staff a human trafficking unit within the Vice Division of the Houston Police Department. Now, we already do work in human trafficking in terms of the interagency task force, but this will allow us to put more local police resources to that effort. In addition to contributing monies, these clubs must institute and adhere to certain restrictions and policies to aid in combating human trafficking. For example, all private rooms and areas must be eliminated. A club may not knowingly employ, hire, or contract for the services of an entertainer or dancer who is accompanied by another person who speaks for her, holds her identification, collects her pay for safekeeping, or appears to exercise control, force, or coercion over that person. A club may not knowingly employ, hire, or contract for the services of a person for whom a background check reveals a conviction within 60 months for a prostitution or drug offense. Any individual convicted of a drug or prostitution offense, public lewdness, or indecent exposure at a participating club is prohibited from working at any club that is a party to the agreement. Any act of prostitution, public lewdness, indecent exposure, or offense involving narcotics observed by or reported to a manager of a club will be reported to the city, along with all remedial measures taken to ensure the activity is not repeated. And all clubs will provide annual human trafficking awareness training and disseminate materials regarding human trafficking awareness. In return, the City of Houston has agreed to allow these 16 clubs to continue operating at their same locations in much the same manner as they did prior to the 1997 ordinance. While topless entertainment and table dances, okay, I can't say that with a straight face, I'm sorry about that. While topless entertainment and table dances will be offered again, laws against public lewdness, prostitution, indecent exposure, and narcotics offenses will continue to be enforced. This is not a hands-off agreement on these clubs. It is allowing them to operate in a clear and consistent manner, allowing them more freedom to operate in the way they would like, but also allowing us the knowledge that a lot of the activities that are most concerning to us will be less likely with the elimination of the private rooms and areas. Arrests for the offenses that I listed would be grounds for terminating a club from participating in this agreement. Now, this agreement applies only to essentially grandfathered clubs who existed or that existed prior to the 1997 ordinance and who have been engaged in these decades of litigation with the city of Houston. Any other club offering sexually oriented entertainment must comply with the 1997 ordinance and all other regulatory provisions. We believe this is a good step forward. As I said, it allows us some new resources to deal with a growing problem in Houston. It allows us to end decades of litigation, and it allows us to work together in a professional and adult manner. Now I'm going to call forward Police Chief Charles McClellan to talk about the impact of this new human trafficking unit.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor. I certainly want to commend our city attorney, Mr. David Feldman, for working through this agreement. In my opinion, it's a very historic agreement, and certainly I'm going to speak to what the Human Trafficking Abatement Fund will allow the Houston Police Department to do. For the first time, we will have the resources and equipment to concentrate solely on human trafficking. Not that those cases haven't been investigated in the past, but it's been investigated by different divisions. Some of the human trafficking cases have been investigated under runaways, missing persons, kidnapping, and there's various divisions in the organization that are responsible for those cases. Now, after this agreement, we will fund additional staff in Vice, 1 lieutenant, 1 sergeant, and about 7 new officers starting January 1st to solely concentrate on human trafficking. Now, we will actually have a better handle and better data on how bad the problem exists here in Houston by working with a common definition, a central depository in the organization. Now we can concentrate on all of those areas, whether that's international, domestic, and the other areas of domestic involuntary servitude. There's many, many forms of human trafficking. So this will allow us now to get a better handle, better enforcement, and certainly respond to this new modern human slavery in our community. So thank you very much, Mayor.
The so-called SOB, or Sexually Oriented Business Ordinance, predates my time in city government, but the elements that, from my time as a Civic Club president, I can tell you the elements that were most concerning to neighborhoods are still intact. These are existing businesses, they're being grandfathered, but neighborhoods want to know when new businesses open up where they're going to be, and new businesses subsequent to this ordinance and not a party to this settlement are still restricted into where they can operate. We care about how they look from the outside, and so sexually oriented businesses in the city of Houston still have restrictions on how they can advertise themselves, and at least on site, and the painting in the neutral colors and so forth. But at least for these clubs, it gets us out of the details of what was a fairly intrusive and onerous ordinance, and focuses on what is important to the city. And I do think it's historic. I'm glad that we were able to move this forward. I'm going to call forward Attorney John Weston, who is a lawyer representing the clubs who are here today.
Thank you, Mayor Parker. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is indeed a historic day, generally, and for me personally. For the first time since 1997, when I first challenged the 1997 SOB ordinance, I don't have a case against the city of Houston. As my father, who was a very wise man, said, the thing about hitting yourself on the head with a hammer is that it feels so good when you stop. But today is historic not just because it marks the end of something, but because it marks the beginning of something extraordinary. For more than 40 years, I've represented adult clubs around the country, argued most of the United States Supreme Court cases establishing the law of adult entertainment. The first adult zoning case in Detroit, 1976, the most recent one in 2001 against Los Angeles, the Topless club case in 1999, and the major licensing case against Dallas in 1990. I've argued in the highest courts in 20 different states and in lower courts around the country. And the unchallenged assumption in all of those cases, in all of those courts, and for all of those years was that adult clubs and government were enemies and had to fight to the last dollar that either of them had. And state and local governments paid us millions of dollars in attorney's fees for cases we won against them. What a waste for everyone. Today, Houston commences an unprecedented different approach with these 16 clubs against a common foe, the heartless, despicable scourge of human sexual trafficking. Historically, the city, and even these 16 responsible clubs, have warred. But today they join to declare war against trafficking and those who engage in it, a war to the death which these new allies have vowed not to lose. As a lawyer, my guiding principle has been consenting adults. But although those trafficked may be adults, they are never consenting. They are forced, coerced, and compelled. They exercise no choices. They have no free will. They are controlled by others. This is anathema to responsible clubs and to their owners, these gentlemen behind me. And it is anathema to this great city. So the city and these 16 clubs have joined to drive it from their community. Never have local government and adult clubs joined forces and pooled their resources. Today they do so to fight a common enemy, the horror of trafficking. By providing significant financial resources to the city for law enforcement anti-trafficking efforts, by providing information and declining to be even unwittingly passively involved with traffickers, by operationally reducing the perceived need for constant monitoring of ordinance regulations, and by heightening awareness and sensitivity amongst entertainers and the community at large, these 16 responsible clubs will be making an enormous contribution to their city and to this cause. Using their own good efforts, skills, and dedicated personnel, and bolstered by what these clubs will provide, the city and its police department will be able to mount stepped-up warfare on the cruel criminality of trafficking and those heartless, amoral monsters who engage in it. My two colleagues, superb Houston attorneys Jim Pinelli and Casey Wallace, and I, and City Attorney David Feldman and his staff have worked tirelessly to make this happen. Jim, Casey, and I, and our clients are proud to join Mayor Parker, the City Attorney's Office, and the Houston Police Department in embarking on this innovative, focused, and noble endeavor. Together, the city and these 16 responsible clubs will convert this extraordinary vision into reality, and together we will drive a stake through the heart of trafficking in Houston. I thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to you all.
I can see why you've been so successful all these years as an attorney. That was excellent. Now I want to invite forward Councilmember Ellen Cohen, who has been a champion on this issue and I guess really started us down this path with her offering in her first year on council of the SAFE ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all. I've spent a great deal, as many of you know, a great deal of my time, of my political and my nonprofit career dealing with sexually oriented businesses. So I'm actually as surprised as anyone to be here today announcing an agreement with the 16 major players of this industry. But it is without hesitation that I tell you I do not condone these types of establishments, but it is also without hesitation that I tell you when I see an opportunity to help victim survivors of human trafficking, it is without question our responsibility to seize the moment. To not do so would be unconscionable and would not honor the victim survivors who endured unimaginable hardships. The city has much to be proud of. We are the coolest city with the hottest economy, greatest ethnic diversity in the country, phenomenal arts, restaurants, and a medical center. Unfortunately, we are also a major hub of human trafficking in this country. We are more than overdue to have our own dedicated human trafficking unit. I'm proud to stand alongside the mayor, my colleagues, and representatives from nonprofits, including the Houston Area Women's Center, the YMCA International Services, Houston Rescue and Restore Coalition, and the Tahara Center to announce this inaugural trafficking unit. Human trafficking is nothing less than modern-day slavery. The wounds that are left on those enslaved are not often visible, but they are incredibly damaging just the same. As many of you know, I was the CEO of the Houston Area Women's Center for 18 years, and during that time I saw firsthand the damage that trafficking can do. If HPD's new human trafficking unit can bring more victim survivors out of the darkness and put more offenders in our prison, which I am convinced they will be able to do, then the importance of this agreement speaks for itself. I want to specifically thank City Attorney Feldman for working with me and for his tireless efforts to reach this agreement. And of course, my thanks to Mayor Parker and HPD for their support in seeing the urgency in dealing with this crisis. And finally, I'd like to leave you with one concluding thought. Since most of us have never met knowingly someone who has been dealt in human trafficking, I want you to do me a favor. I want you just to close your eyes for a second. Even those of you behind the cameras, they'll work by themselves. Just close your eyes for 1 second. And think of what the daily lives must be like and the horror that human trafficking victims have. Picture what a human trafficking survivor might look like. Close your eyes and picture it. What's their language? How old are they? What sex are they? What color are they? What country are they from? Okay, now picture that that person is your daughter, your son, your family member, or your friend. Let's continue to do everything we can to protect those who cannot protect themselves, so that one day we might say, the city of Houston is not a hub of human trafficking, but the center of the fight to eradicate it. Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Ann Chandler, who is the Houston Director of the Tahara Justice Center. Ann.
Thank you, Ellen. At the Tahara Justice Center, we have the honor of assisting courageous clients of human trafficking after they have experienced tremendous trauma and have embarked on the long road to recovery. We are committed to helping survivors access protections that exist under U.S. law and of connecting women and girls to the vital services they need to get back on their feet and embark on a road of safety and dignity. And I'm proud to stand alongside my colleagues at the Houston Area Women's Center, the YMCA International Services, and Houston Rescue and Restore, victim advocates organizations, to applaud the City of Houston and the police department for responding to the problem of human trafficking in Houston, a scourge on our city that must not remain hidden. Our city officials must be commended for expanding their efforts to go after the sources of human trafficking. If we want to make a difference. We must go beyond identifying and supporting the victims of modern-day slavery and go after the criminals behind this gross human rights violation. It takes courage to recognize that this type of unthinkable human rights violation is happening right here in the streets of Houston. But courage has never been in short supply for our law enforcement officials. But it takes more than courage. It also takes money and resources. And thus I'm very pleased to see this creative solution today come to pass. So let us stand together and send a strong message to the criminals. We see you, and human trafficking will not be tolerated in Houston.
This is a new relationship. It's somewhat unprecedented. There may be some bumps in the road as we sort out what is a certainly changed relationship between the Vice Division of the Houston Police Department and the clubs that are represented here today. But one thing is clear, we are focused not any longer on viewing the workers in these clubs or the primarily women, the dancers, as the problem. We're focused on what the true issue is, and the true problem for our community on the human trafficking aspect. There will be those in the community who don't approve of this settlement. There will be those who will never be comfortable with adult entertainment venues, and I understand and respect that. But in terms of the future of the city of Houston, this is a good step forward. It ends decades of litigation. It gives us tools to tackle what we think is a more significant problem, and it allows me to put my police resources working with the chief of police to what I consider a higher priority. Thank everybody for standing with me today as we make this announcement, and I look forward to your questions.